couple of months ago, I took a look at the Zavvi reissue of the Big Chief Studios 1/6 scale 4th Doctor figure. And over the next couple of weeks, I'm going to be taking a look at some of the other reissued figures in this series. And today, I'm going to start by looking at the 10th Doctor. Now, these re-releases are essentially budget versions of the original releases, meaning they're essentially the same figure, but they're really stripped down when it comes to the accessories and the overall packaging and presentation of the figure. So as a quick reminder for those who may have missed the original release of the Series 4 version of David Tennant's 10th Doctor, this is what the original figure looked like. Obviously we can see the 10th Doctor here in his costume, that is largely the same, but he also had this fabulous cardboard inlay which doubled as a backdrop, which of course shows the interior of his TARDIS, which is pretty nice. That is of course completely absent from this reissue. You can also see these other accessories that he has here, including an adipose, various spectacles, multiple pairs of hands, and he had things like the psychic paper, the fob watch, and Riversong's sonic screwdriver. Okay, so let's start off by looking at the packaging. Now, this is going to look very, very familiar to the 4th Doctor packaging because it is pretty much the same design. We have some Gallifreyan logos going on, which is quite nice. We have this sort of hexagon in the centre of the package there, which reveals the action figure inside. And all in all, I have to say, this is still fairly presentable. This is quite nice looking. It's not the most exciting packaging in the world, but it's quite nice, and you can put this on display quite happily. The side panel is more of the same, really. We see the same design wrap around the box, and this looks fine. It would have been nice if they'd used this side panel to correctly display the figure that was inside the box, or the version of the character that we're getting. I think that would have been quite fun, because of course we could have stacked these up on the shelf. But as it is, this is okay, but a little bit nondescript and a missed opportunity, I think. And I have mixed feelings about the reverse of the packaging. I do like that it's a lot more colourful, and we can see obviously all the other figures that are being released in this reissue wave, I suppose. So I do quite like how they've colour-coded them. We have a little bit of info, a bit of bio about each character, but I think again, if this had been a bit more personalised to the individual character that you're getting in this box, then that would have been nicer. When you open the lid of this packaging, you will realise that inside we have another box and this individual slide here, which as you can see is the cutout for the hexagon there. We have this photo of the figure itself and then a list of the various accessories that it comes with. Meanwhile, the figure is safely contained in this plastic packaging. Around it you can see there is this very thin white card, and it is incredibly flimsy and weak. If you remove the plastic packaging within, you will see that this is very, very wobbly, and it feels very, very cheap and not the most secure, so a little bit disconcerting. Now, I have to be completely honest with you, after my experience with the 4th Doctor figure, I was a little bit hesitant about some of the quality control issues with these re-released figures. I've heard some real horror stories from some of my subscribers who've had some horrific experiences, so I was a little dubious about this figure. But that being said, let's start off by looking at the sculpting. And if we look at this head sculpt here, I've got real mixed feelings about this. For the most part, I think they've done a pretty good job with the hair. It might be a little bit too exaggerated for my liking, but it's fair enough. But if we compare this to a photo from Series 4, because of course this is meant to be the Series 4 version of the character in its blue suit and the red tie, if we compare the likeness here, I don't think this is a very good likeness in truth. I think this is actually a little bit off. And I think it's mostly because the face just seems a little too broad for David Tennant at this point in the series, and it just doesn't look quite right. Now, if we compare this against the Series 2 sculpt that Big Chief Studios produced, you can see a world of difference in how uncanny this one on the right looks. Like, this is spot on. I mean, this is absolutely perfect. This is a wonderful likeness of the 10th Doctor. I think this is absolutely fantastic. So I'm not sure why the Series 4 is so off by comparison. That being said, it could be worse because Big Chief also released an incentive version of the 10th Doctor with an alternative head. It's of course from his debut episode, The Christmas Invasion, when he's in his dressing gown, and they gave him this smiling head, which, wow, this looks truly horrific. This is a terrible likeness in my opinion. This just is fairly monstrous. Anyway, back to the figure at hand. Now, one of the issues I've had with some of these re-releases is some of the tailoring concerns. Overall, the costumes are very, very nice and the materials they've used are very, very good. However, they just look very, very sloppy in box. So you can see the collar's very disjointed, the tie's a little bit sloppy here, and it just looks a bit messy, really. And sure, you know, we can tidy that up, that's not a problem, but I really feel like for a figure of this price, they should be coming pristine. Now, I think my favourite thing about this figure is his trench coat. I think this is really nicely cut. I think they've done a very good job of the tailoring. I love that on the interior we have this blue silk lining. This looks really, really good and pretty faithful to what we see on screen. At the hem of the trench coat, we can see there is this wire, which means you can pose the coat into various different dynamic poses to create some swishing effects, and this works really very well. I also noticed that on the interior there are these pockets here, and on one of them there is this little hole which makes me think you could slide the sonic screwdriver in here. I believe that's intentional, but I'm not entirely sure. I also really like that all of his pockets are functioning. So if we look at the outer coat pockets here, they're actually quite deep. You can put some fun accessories in there, and likewise his trouser pockets are also functional. The only thing I was slightly disappointed by with the jacket are these lines that are sewn in there. They just look a little bit too bright. The white against the beige of the coat just look very striking and very stark, and I'm not sure that this is screen accurate. He does come with his trainers. They are made of a rubber material and they are all sculpted as one piece, so sadly the lace is not individual and they're not made from a separate cotton material, which is disappointing. But if we lift up his leg, we can see that they have at least given him socks, which is a cool touch, and I think it adds a little bit of extra texture to this figure, which is pretty nice. And as you can see, he is also given a display stand, and there is a little switch on there that when you pull that to the side, it will light up that Doctor Who logo. Now, this is pretty generic. All of these reissued figures have the exact same base with the exact same logo. Now, for me personally, I would have much preferred they had the logo from the particular era that they are from, but clearly this is an example of where they've made savings to make this a budget release. Now, as I said at the beginning of the video, I was a little bit hesitant about the quality control issues with these figures, but in the main, this figure was pretty good, except you will notice his head did have a tendency to want to pop out, but that was easily fixed and it wasn't detrimental to the experience. But other than that, I'm pleased to announce there were no major concerns. So in terms of articulation, he does have a ball joint in his neck. There's also a swivel at the top of the neck there. He can turn his head all the way around and of course bend it forwards and backwards and lean it from side to side as well. He does have ball joints in the shoulders, so his arms do lift up and out, which is great. There's an upper bicep swivel to allow them to swivel there, and he has double joints in the elbow as well, which works pretty effectively. There is a ball joint at the wrist there, which will allow the hand to rotate all the way around, and if you angle it the correct way, it will also hinge forwards and backwards as well. He does of course have some articulation in the waist, and he can turn from side to side, but it's a little bit stiff and it doesn't feel like it really wants to work with you. I did notice he can sort of lean from left to right, but there's not a huge range of motion here and I didn't want to push it. He can lean forwards and backwards, but as you can see it's a little bit stiff and it's not particularly forthcoming here. He does have hinge at the hips, so his legs do kick out to the side, they kick forwards. There's actually an extra thigh swivel as well, and then he has double jointed knees, so he can kick his legs all the way back. There's another swivel at the top of the boot, so it will turn from left to right, and that seems to be about it. Despite being a pared down release when it comes to accessories, he does come with quite a few goodies as well. He does have an extra pair of hands, which are critical for holding some of these items, which is great. He also has the psychic paper, his sonic screwdriver, both extended and truncated, and his spectacles as well. So whilst these accessories aren't as plentiful as the original release, I do think they've actually given us the best ones. The only one that I think I would have really quite liked would have been the fob watch, but aside from that, I think they've done a very, very nice job with it. I would say that all the accessories we've been given here are the essential ones for this version of the character. Of course, we need those sonic screwdrivers, and I love that we got two versions of it. That was a really nice touch and something that we may not have got. So I'm really pleased that they've actually given us both versions of that. I think that works really well. Likewise, the psychic paper is something that this character uses an awful lot in the series, so really cool to have that accessory as well. And I really like that they've given us at least one pair of spectacles, because this character of course would utilise them through many different episodes of the series, and this feels like a really nice character touch. So all in all, I think what we have here is pretty good. I'm pretty happy with these accessories, and the ones that we're missing out on, I'm not too bothered about, to be honest. I didn't really particularly like the adipose episode, for example, and I can live without one of those, so that suits me down to the ground. You know, I would have maybe liked the fob watch or the River Song sonic screwdriver, but really they're just an afterthought. They're little extras that I can live without. And I'm really pleased to report that aside from the head popping out more often than I would like, overall there have been no real quality control issues for me personally. This figure's worked out really very nicely. I've been able to pose him in multiple poses without any issues. I've had no problems with the joints breaking at all or anything like that, like I did with the 4th Doctor. So I think I've been very fortunate with this 10th Doctor, and he works really nice. And despite some concerns about the likeness, overall I do think this is quite a striking figure. It definitely replicates what we see on screen for the most part. I really love the addition of this trench coat because I think that really carries a lot of the weight for this character. It makes it a lot more dramatic in terms of the different poses you can put this figure in, and it always looks really fun and visually interesting. And I think we've got enough accessories to keep the look fresh and interesting and quite different and dynamic. So all in all, a very nice figure actually, I have to say. Slightly disappointing about the head sculpt, but aside from that, I do think this is actually probably worth picking up if you missed it first time around. If you enjoyed this video, please do give it a like, and remember to subscribe as there'll be plenty more videos soon.